Greetings and welcome to the Here We Stand podcast. We're coming to you from the studios in what R.C. Sproul used to call the narthex of Providence Baptist Church. I'm here today with my fellow elder and producer, Roger Dale Peters, and we have a very special show for you today, two very special guests. We have a former guest on our show, Kyle Hebert, and a lot of you who are watching know Kyle. Kyle is the chaplain at the Livingston Parish Prison. He also works at DelTAC, and he runs a program that's called the Family Approach Inmate Reentry and Rehab Program. It is a fantastic program to help guys who are inside the prisons at the Livingston Parish Prison, to get them back on their feet once their time is up, and really to give them good godly counsel on what it means to be a Christian. And we've talked about this before on our podcast, but for today, what we want to focus on is his absolute first cousin, Desiree Wibright. Have I got that name right,
correct.
Desiree? Very good. And she is a prevention specialist with the Too Good for Drugs program in the St. Bernard Parish Community School System. Now, I've been learning about this today. This is a fantastic program that is geared toward children in the public school system at the high school age, the 14, 15 range. And what I'm going to do today is just get Desiree to tell us a little bit about the program. And then she and Kyle are going to have some interaction together, because this is going to be geared toward the kids that she's going to be ministering to in this program. So Desiree, if you could, just tell us a little bit about the program Too Good for Drugs.
Okay, it's focused on the ninth grade students. That's what I work with and specialize in at the time. And we're trying to bring information to the students to help them make better choices. At 14 and 15 years old, they tend to veer away from doing the right thing and making right choices. Sometimes they get caught up in following someone else, peer pressure, and issues that they may be dealing with at home or in school or with siblings, family members. It could be in any vast of things. And we promote them and try to encourage them to make the right choices, to know that their choices are what matters, and that it becomes something that becomes themselves and what their future may be. And we bring in guest speakers, and we speak to them for about 2 weeks. And it's not 2 weeks straight. It's kind of broken up to give them a little bit of a break in between. And, we basically trying to just make a difference in their lives by bringing in information that they can utilize, that they can relate to, and that they can remember and carry with them for the rest of their life.
That is so awesome. And so you get 2 weeks in a school year, and you just break it up in different sessions.
Right. So we do it in 2 semesters, actually.
In 2 semesters.
So twice. We do it during their PE class so that we don't disrupt their regular school day. Not that PE is not as important, but we really don't have a lot of time during school. Mm-hmm. And that's why we do break it up, so that, for example, one of their weeks may look like Tuesday. We may meet with them on Tuesday during their PE class, and then we don't see them again until the following week, maybe on a Wednesday,
Gotcha.
Or Thursday.
And you've had like the sheriff of St. Bernard Parish as
That's
a speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And so how long have you been doing this? Has this just started this year? Or?
It started about 5 years ago, and I have been in the program 4.5 of those 5. And like you said, the sheriff has been our speaker each time. He's been there from the beginning, and he still exists today. And we also have somebody like the district attorney may come in and speak to them about, what could happen and dangers. Mm-hmm. It could be the parish president, for example, people like that are in positions that they wouldn't ordinarily get to meet or sit at a table with. Mm-hmm. So we do bring in, people like that. We have a pastor that's in one of our local churches that comes in and speaks about his story and mm-hmm. tells things that relate to these children, to try to help them. And also somebody that's not from our area that has a story like Kyle that, spiraled out of control. And his story hopefully can help the kids relate and understand what not to do.
Right, absolutely. And I think it's so great that St. Bernard Parish has community leaders that are willing to come and do things like this to help the children in their own community.
No doubt.
That is very rare. And we need so much more of this in our day of today, with so many distractions and things that the kids have to deal with, temptations that they have to deal with that we didn't in our generation even have to even think about.
Right.
We didn't even consider the things we see going on today would even be a thing.
Right.
And
That's
now
correct.
these kids are just bombarded with stuff from the world. So I really, really love to hear about this program. And I think what we would like to do is for you to talk with Kyle here about, you're his first cousin.
That's correct.
Right. So you've known Kyle all of his life, right? And so talk a little bit about your childhood growing up, and then kind of talk to Kyle about the story of what happened when things went wrong, and then leading up to when you met him in Angola.
Okay, so we are almost exactly the same age. Our birthdays are about a month apart, and we're first cousins. Our fathers are brothers, and we both grew up in the same area, same parish of St. Bernard, and we were pretty close. We'd see each other for sure every Sunday for dinner at our mama.
What was her name?
Mama Dada.
Dada.
I like that.
So she lived in Violet, and we both lived in Chalmette. And we would get together at a very large family. And our parents are one of 12 kids. Anyway, so we had a lot of cousins, and it was very nice to get together. And so we'd see each other on a regular basis. And because we were about the same age, we would also be in the same circle with different things that we may do, maybe a party or a gathering. And, he went to Chalmette High School. I went to Andrew Jackson, both in
So you weren't a
parish.
Chalmatian.
I was.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I was. He was too.
Okay. We're leading up to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
and at the time they are in Chalmette High, and it's a co-ed school. But when we went to school, the high school was separated. That's what sparked you to question that.
Yeah.
So Andrew Jackson was the girls' school.
And he was at the boys' school.
And he was at the boys' school, which was Chalmette High as it is today. And I was a cheerleader at Chalmette High, but the girls for the school, they took the girls from the girls' school to do the Chalmette High things
for the football.
For football and, whatever it might have been, basketball or what have you. So anyway, we were close. We grew up, as young cousins and friends pretty much. And I have siblings and he has a sibling. And so, we encountered each other on a regular basis and everything was fine. He was a great kid, good kid until he wasn't good anymore, which I guess let you
Yeah, well, something happened to Kyle early on in his life. Do you remember that? Through that?
I do. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that, or do you want me to?
Yeah, Kyle, you can tell the story real quick, and you can kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was raised with a precious mother and father, her aunt and uncle, and very moral. And my daddy was an engineer, mother a school teacher. And let me tell you, my daddy, Johnny, would do virtually anything for his bride. And whenever my mom wanted something completed at the house, he jumped on it. This particular time, 1970, I'm 5 years old, and I loved being with my dad. He taught me a lot of vocational skills, and I hungered for that. And I fed off of all of that. But one November in 1970, remodeling the kitchen, it was late at night. He was very tired. He left the pilot light on the gas stove while installing Formica countertops. The glue is highly flammable. And lo and behold, the air fuel mixture was atrocious. And it went off like an atomic bomb. Sent him and I into hospital I was there almost a year and 8 months.
It's a long time.
46 major operations. Daddy about 6-7 months. But my mama had just basic burns because she ran in the house and actually used her body to extinguish the fire of her 5-year-old. Talk about the love of a mother. Mm-hmm. And so that created in me a heart that was, just an angry kid, and, we had talked about this. Verbally, I was getting abused by the kids, and I didn't react accordingly. Once I got back to school, they let me back, and I had to sit in a room by myself because of germs.
So you're like at first grade at this point.
Yeah, I'm finishing up kindergarten, first grade, and I'm still going through the surgeries. Mm-hmm. So I had to be apart from the students because of germs. Mm-hmm. And so kids would come look in the window and gawk at me. And I'm sure a lot of this, was my own imagination until they would verbally say something to me. And I always said to myself, when I get out this room, I'm going to get out there in the rec yard, and I'm gonna fight them. I'm gonna beat them up. And I can remember getting so angry, y'all, that I would smell blood. Mm. And so, lo and behold, when I did get out that classroom and was able to, interact with the other children, I was fighting every day until my mother, who worked for the school, also, and she was close with everybody at CF Raleigh. She got with my dad. So we got to do something with him because he's going to get kicked out of school. And I deserved that. But I was a good student until I wasn't a good student. Mm. And so the fighting had to stop. And I was raised in a very moral home. They were not real churchgoers, but just really good moral people. And their answer was, hey, let's put him in sports. And so football was the sport of my choice. And I excelled in it and loved it. And not only did it help me with building community and being a team player, but my grades began to skyrocket.
You remember that.
Mm-hmm. And so, Coach Ronnie Cornick at Chalmette Middle School, and they poured their lives into me. I went from defense, became a running back, and a pretty good one. I was fast. I could
broke some records, huh?
When I got to Chalmette, I broke several records. Yeah. And it was a blessing. I was under Coach Chimento, Ronnie Chimento, and I carried a 4.0 grade, a GPA. You had to make the grade to play football. So in that sense, my mother and father was right. Put me in sports, and let me tell you, I became the poster boy, at Chalmette High. Because I had actually come out of a wheelchair, and from a wheelchair to running a football and having a 1,000-yard rushing season. I had a couple of them, and making the grade 4.0 GPA. And I wasn't, I was planning on college, right. So, from 5th grade to 12th grade, I was the star athlete.
And you're the cheerleader.
Just the cheerleader.
Cheering him on as he's running them touchdowns.
Desiree was there for all of that. And it was a blessing. I loved school. I enjoyed football. I enjoyed community. I enjoyed making the grade, preparing for college. And some, UL was looking at me, and I even went on campus until 1983, my senior year. Mm-hmm. I can never, ever remember a practice or a game that my father was not there. My father was my rock. And we was close. He actually became, my idol, my little G God. Right. And I love Daddy. And 1983, after, we just beat St. Aug in the Superdome.
That's the big one.
It was the big one. We had never beat St. Aug. So 1983 is the first year we ever beat St. Aug. It was huge.
I was toting the rock in that.
Toting the rock. Yeah. I ran a punt back in that game, won the game.
Wow.
And it was solid, you know. And let me tell you, we was happy. Even my brother John, he was even happy that night. I was like, man, I need to do that more often. I love my brother.
And
man.
Your dad had to be just bursting.
Oh, he was
pride and joy.
And he had to talk with me. Look, that night had to talk. Like, your future's here. I'm proud of you. We're getting ready to step into the next chapter. Right. I was going to go to UL to be forestry. I wanted to, really, get into agriculture and everything, and dealing with these. All these state parks and everything. And I had my heart set on that. And that night, my dad went to sleep. And I never heard my mother and father argue. If they argued, and I'm sure like every other couple, they did. They was private about that, We didn't have the perfect family, but it was calm at the house. My mom was a rowdy woman, but, you knew she loved you. It wasn't punitive. It was purifying. And I loved that about my mom. But I heard her yelling, screaming. But it wasn't an argument. It was fear, terror. Me and my brother John come running out our room. And as I got closer to their bedroom, I could hear Daddy's dead, Daddy's dead. And my life changed.
That very night. Wow.
That very night,
incredible.
Philip. And so, from, kindergarten, first grade, the fighting, and then I went from like 5th grade all the way to 12th grade, not a mark. I mean, just your poster boy, kid, teenager, got a future, going to go to college, and then daddy.
Tragedy.
Tragedy. And that's where the bottom fell out. And I started running with the wolves. I don't know any other way to put it.
Right.
And matter of fact, I walked away from school. And Miss Cheryl Molaire was one of my teachers that really poured in. Miss Debbie Goday. Those two teachers begged me to come back to school. I had perfect attendance from 5th grade to 12th grade.
Wow.
I started missing school in 12th grade, right after Daddy died. I didn't even cry at the funeral, and I didn't go back to school, and Mama couldn't handle me. And so I would go back. Look, I had a 4.0, but it dropped to like a 3.6, 3.5. I still graduated with the ropes, but I didn't graduate number 1 in my class. I had the Scholastic Award locked in and everything. I lost all of that. But I didn't. I threw the football helmet down and picked up a biker helmet. And, Desiree can tell you I started doing drugs for the first time, really drinking and running with women and being abusive. And I got arrested for the first time at 17. And look, Judge Garberty was there, and he's like, "What is wrong with you?" But let me tell you, Judge Garberty did his job, and I was grateful for that. He said, "I'm not going to stand on a soapbox. You're going to straighten up." But I didn't listen. So drinking and drugging and partying and starting to get arrested. So from 1983 to 1999, I wound up with 97 arrests and 4 felony convictions. And look, in between that, there was people that came up to me and said, "Hey, you need AA, you need NA." And I would look them in the eye and say, "I don't want to hear nothing about no AA, no NA. The only thing I know is the DA."
That's right. Getting to know him pretty well.
Very well.
Yeah.
And it was not a pretty sight, because in, the culmination and destruction of this downward spiral to hell, and me destroying my family, all my relationships, led to me coming home in 1999. And I don't blame the alcohol. I don't blame the drugs. I don't blame the police department. I don't blame the DA. I blame myself. I came home and beat up my 72-year-old aunt, and my mother witnessed it. And it was at that point that my mama said, "You are not welcome at this house anymore." Because let me tell you, Mama enabled me a lot. From 83 to 99. Mamas do that. Right. Mamas love their boys, especially their bad boys. Right. And there wasn't nothing that woman wouldn't do for me. Nanny forgave me. She didn't even flinch. Wow. Her message to me was, "You need to get straight. I'm going to love you. And I forgive you." Nanny looked me in the eye. I was broken behind that. And I can never remember a time. Let me tell you, Sheriff Pullman, who has been in my life, he went to Promised Land Academy, and they was trying to get me to go play ball at Promised Land. I stayed at Chalmette, and he'll tell you that story another day. He was trying to recruit me. I was going to play ball with him because he played ball. But me and Sheriff Pullman was like that. That man never stopped loving me. Right. But let me tell you, he knew what it was going to take. But I can never remember an arrest that Sheriff Pullman didn't show up. And I asked him that the last time I was down there with y'all, Desiree. I said, "Why you always showed up at the arrest?" He said, "To make sure nobody killed you."
So wait a minute, Desiree. Let me ask you real quick. So you were with Kyle on this tremendous 5th grade to 12th grade journey, a 4.0 football star, get to the biggest game in Chalmette history, maybe up to that point at least, against St. Aug, and the whole 9 yards and the down. Then the tragedy strikes. And then from your vantage point, tell us a little bit about what you saw Kyle spiraling into at that point before he gets to prison.
he was out of control, somebody that we didn't recognize. And, we had to deal with the death of our uncle, because that probably was one of the first ones that
He was.
passed away. Is that right? I don't remember.
Yes, ma'am.
But anyway, he was one of the first ones that passed away. So I think it struck us kind of, sudden and odd. And it, hurt me for a while because, we were close to him and everything. And my dad, and, just to deal with the death, it was just a little crazy because I was, I guess, same age then.
Yeah,
I was a
17,
senior in high school. Yeah. And so I can just remember, I don't remember little details, like crazy, but I do remember things because I was busy, being a senior myself and, doing my next steps and stuff for school and all. I would hear things that the family would say, or I would witness some things that he would do. Like he sideswiped my mom's car that was parked in front of the street. And, that was unbelievable. Like, why would he do that? Or how did he do that? Like, what was going on that he would sideswipe on a regular boulevard? Like, what could he have been doing? Little things like that. And then, you'd hear stuff, you'd hear the chatter. Somebody might have been gossiping about something that he did because it was kind of unprecedented and weird.
Yeah, because it's a total flip
right.
of what he was in high school.
Exactly. And so, I went through all of that. And then, of course, the story's going to go on and explain the details. But I think, stepped away from all that because that wasn't anything that I was, going to be involved in.
Right.
And he wouldn't have expected me to, but he was around my age and he lives in our community and he, was with other friends and stuff. So I watched it go on. And
there really wasn't anything you felt like you could do in that situation.
No, he wouldn't listen.
Right, you weren't going to listen anyway.
No.
So then, Kyle, this leads up to this event, leads up to, of course, you getting to Angola.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about that, and then I want to lead up to when you see him, Desiree, for the first time when you go to the rodeo.
But you remember you had somebody at your house so start from there, when you got arrested after you beat up Aunt. Remember you were at the house and you had a girlfriend.
Oh yes, Susan. Which this is all. Yeah, I had Susan staying with me. Matter of fact, a young lady that I had met while I was in St. Bernard Parish, and I brought her home. But she was there at the house when I beat up my nanny, and so really the argument started with her and I. And so she got the brunt of it when I pulled in that evening. I was at Lehman's Bar and we were shooting pool. But the fight that started at Lehman's Bar, I brought it home. And Susan and I was arguing and fighting. And then it led up, my nanny comes outside to try to break us up.
Right.
And then tell me that the truck was overheating. And I didn't find out none of that until later. She never mentioned that to me. And so it would be, from that incident, it would be 11 days later. And I'm going to school for the local 11 sheet metal union, which I now work with at Deltac.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But 11 days later, I'm coming home back. I'm still living at the house. And my mama didn't want me around, but she let me stay there and, until I found my own place. So 11 days later, I'm coming down Shangri-La. And there's police cars on both sides of the street. And, my self-centered self says, oh, somebody's in trouble.
Little did he know.
Little did I know, and this is the grace of God, y'all. The neighbor saw my nanny bruised up. Because you hit a 72-year-old, they bruise pretty easy. And she was sitting on the porch. And the neighbor, man, God sovereignly used that neighbor to call the police. And that night, a miracle transpired. And Sheriff Pullman was there. When I pulled in the driveway, all I heard was the guns clicking. Get out put your hands up. But there was a freedom in me that I had never felt. What I didn't mention was doing those escapades of me partying and hanging at Park Chenier. They would have kids that would, from the various churches, that would, be coming around and sharing the gospel. I never had anything against Christians. Just didn't want to be one.
Right. Didn't want to hear it.
Didn't want to hear it. But I was nice to them. I thought they were doing a good thing.
Yeah.
And I would even go as far as allowing them to pray with me. Mm. But little did I know seeds were being planted.
Yeah. Right.
They'd share the gospel. Right. I'd hear this, and, there was no illumination, right. But, the information was in there. The information was there. The soil was being in this. Let me tell you, when I beat up Nanny, my Aunt Anna Mae, I was broken by the humility of that. And it was, and let me tell you, God convicted me, but I couldn't put words to any of that. But on August 19th, 1999, when the St. Bernard Parish Sheriff's Department came and did their job after the neighbor made the phone call and they put me in the back seat of that St. Bernard Sheriff's police car, I was free. Mm. And I said to myself, I'm never coming back to this home. And lo and behold, I wouldn't. But I was like a wild animal that was finally caged and now calmed. And when they brought me to the St. Bernard lockup for the first time, when that cell door shut, it went off like a church bell. Mm. My eyes were opened. Crazy. I got saved in the backseat of a police car. Mm. So I'm grateful for the sheriff's office. Yeah. God sovereignly using Sheriff Pullman and his group, and all the, the judges and the DAs that, did their job. And so, and from me walking out that cell and going in a dorm in the parish jail for the first time, I'm now looking for a Bible. I wasn't looking for God, but God found me. Mm. And so now my heart and eyes are open, and lo and behold, he would send individuals, and I began studying the word. When I went to my first court hearing, I told Judge Garvity, I asked him, you don't tell Judge Garvity anything. You ask. I said, can I go ahead and plead guilty now? But he wouldn't let me. But he would eventually. Right. And for the first time in my life, y'all, I took responsibility. Yeah. And so in the latter part of 99 and then early 2000, I pled guilty, and rightly so. Should have got a life sentence. Judge Garvity gave me 40 years. Mm-hmm. Well, I gave myself 40 years. He was just abiding by the law. Right. And 40 years wouldn't normally send you to the Louisiana State Penitentiary. Usually send you to Hunt, DCI, or one of the smaller prisons. But I was blessed to go through the front gates of the Louisiana State Penitentiary, which became the land of new beginnings for me. Yeah. Because, God is sovereign. And, all those skill sets that my dad was teaching me, I would be able to utilize them as a trustee. Mm. Morgan Kane is building a chapel in Angola and needed an air-conditioned duck guy. I just come through the local 11 Sheet Metal Union apprenticeship program. I can build ducks. And they put a young man with me, Ronald Edison, who's the janitor cleaning up all my metal. Walked in as a trustee. Warden Kane put me at Camp D. Never happens. Usually got to do field time. God was taking care of me right off the bat. And, my family, rightly so, had turned from me. And I don't blame them. No communication. None. So it's just me and God. Right. So I'm studying the word. I'm working. Warden Kane, Warden Vinoy, give me a job at Camp D. I'm a trustee. I'm putting in all the air-conditioned duct work. Puts a young man, Ronald Edison, who's a pastor from Slidell, who pulls an armed robbery, and he's teaching me the Bible. Come on now. And so Warden Kane says, Kyle, you do a good job on this chapel. I'll put you anywhere you want in the prison. Well, I'm not sure where to go, but Ronald's like, hey, man, we need to go to the main prison. It's kind of like Jerusalem. You got all the programs and everything. Yeah. But little did I know, Warden Kane says, well, where you want to work? Put me in maintenance. Yeah. God turns the heart of the king whichever way, like rivers of water. Takes Warden Kane's heart and bends him, and he puts me in maintenance, all right. Maintenance worker of the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. What a coincidence, right, Kyle? Divine appointment, brother. And so I'm in there hearing all this theology. And so let me tell y'all, for me, prison was a mercy. And so I'm grateful for, everyone who was, involved, in doing their job, right. Arresting me, sentencing me, right. And sending me where I deserve to have never come home. Right. And And being in that Bible college, I found out quickly I had a calling on my life.
Right.
And so I would go through the 4-year program, then I get my MDiv.
Yep.
And then meanwhile, I find out that prior to my arrest, I am at spring break, and I meet a girl, Melissa, who's running from her husband. She's married, but we meet in the elevator, one night stand. I get her pregnant, don't know I get her pregnant. And then I come back to St. Bernard. She stays in Panama City, gets back with her husband, has to tell him I'm pregnant from some guy from Louisiana.
From Camp D.
From Camp D.
Camp D.
God again, sovereign.
Yes.
You know what that husband says? He needs to be a part of that baby's life.
Wow.
And so she gets in touch with me, sends me a picture. Very rare, only when God's involved. And so I get to raise my son Matthew from prison. And again, it's just me. How old
was Matthew when you met him?
9
How
years
old was he when you found out you had?
He was 2 weeks old when I learned of him. So I would be
early.
Oh yeah,
he's always known you as daddy.
He's always known me as daddy.
I didn't realize.
But I spoke with Mama and more Grandma Peggy than Mama. But me and Peggy got real close. Her grandma,
awesome
my son's grandma, and so and then Kim Martin, who's a friend of mine, Jack Martin's sister. She poured into my life, and she financially paid because I didn't have no family. I didn't get no money.
Right.
I mean, I got
commissary was low.
It was low. Yeah, I got 4 cents, at work, for work. And then I got my raise to 8 cents. And then when I became a mentor, I got 35 cents.
Hey, look at that. Big roller.
Oh my gosh.
So, and long story short, though, Kim paid for all my phone bills and everything. She wanted me to be a father to my son.
Right.
Unlike my dad, he taught me some really great stuff vocationally and morally. I raised my son in the Word.
In the Word of God.
In the Word of God.
Amen.
Fully
Amen.
in the Word of God. And today, Matthew has graduated from Wheaton College with his MDiv, and he's now in New York in his second year law school.
Unbelievable.
So
what a story.
Yeah, we got a young conservative coming out of there, loves Trump.
Yeah. I can't wait to meet him. So real quick, because we got to get to the question, the Q&A time, but just could you tell me kind of what led up to you going to the rodeo that day and how you met back up with Kyle, real quick?
So another coincidence, if there's anything.
No such thing as luck, chance, or coincidence, only God's providence.
That's right.
Amen.
That's right. So my son worked for an electrical company, and he's an electrician, and he's, put on that job in Angola. I'm not really sure how you guys made the connection or knew. How did he realize who you were, or how did that go, first of all?
I was part of the Angolite, the prison magazine, and I was doing a story on the reconstruction and the renewing of the kitchen. And so I'm interviewing the workers, and I run into your son.
I didn't even
Divine appointment.
Wow,
and he's like,
that's crazy.
Who are you? I'm Kyle Hebert. My mama's an Hebert. Who's your mama? Desiree.
From where?
From where?
Wow.
I said, come here, boy. I gave him a hug. I kissed him, too.
That's crazy.
And we connected. I mean, it was like him and I had never been apart.
Blood.
Yeah, I mean, it's my blood.
That's
I mean,
right.
that was like my son.
There had to be a unique connection there.
So does he come home and tell you, hey, Mom, guess what?
Yeah. I just don't remember the detail like that. That's why I wanted to ask you, because I didn't remember that. I might have maybe heard it, but I was like so freaked out. I didn't remember.
It was precious.
But anyway, so not too long after that, I went to the rodeo.
Yeah.
And we brought, I think, I can't remember who went with us, but we had like a little with us.
Yeah, you had your crew.
Yeah, but might have been like one of my grandbabies, if I'm not mistaken. And we went up there and went to the rodeo. Well, it wasn't like I could call him and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm coming.
No,
or
that doesn't happen.
did I even really expect to see him? I was,
you weren't even sure if you're going to see him.
No. But I think I had maybe an expectation of it, or a preparing in my brain and in my heart.
Right.
That what if I see him? Like, what do I do? I mean, it's been how long?
Oh, goodness. So
that would have been,
15 years probably.
Well, if it was 3 years before you got out.
Yeah. Yeah, I got out in 22.
You had okay, but you had to have been in there serving at least 20-something years.
Oh, yeah.
I was there. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I accidentally happened upon him. I mean, And he was a trustee.
Yeah, I'm walking around with a camera.
He was just walking around and had some kind of a folder.
You're just sitting in the stands?
No, I wasn't in the stands. As a matter of fact, I wonder if Brent was with us. I can't remember now. I should have tried to find out before I came. I don't remember.
He may have been. I think he was with me.
He may have been with me.
He knew where I was at.
Or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, because you see Kyle.
But I saw him, and he was like, just like somewhere. Not like, like all the others were like detained. Like I could see prisoners, and I guess they have them in like sections or whatever where they could see the public and stuff. And you see them behind the things, and they were all the ones that were probably there a while that you could trust and that they wouldn't holler at the public coming to see the rodeo. He was just like one of us, kind of like, you know what I mean? And it was just the weirdest thing. Of course, it wouldn't have mattered how he was dressed. I recognized him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. And he was like, maybe he was expecting to see me, or maybe you were secretly looking around because you might have known I was going. I just don't remember.
I asked for you. I do remember now. Yeah, when he came up to me and I hugged him because I told him, I said, look, if you come into the rodeo, just look for the Anglite booth. We sell, magazines.
Yeah.
Because we took a picture.
I forgot. That's right.
In front of them. Matter of fact, I probably could find that picture with us there. And you was in the, I said, is your mama here? Yes, she's walking up. And
I was a nervous wreck. Come on. It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah,
how often do you go to a prison, number one?
But not only that, all this backstory and this, and
I didn't know what
she didn't know what to expect.
I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what anybody else would think or how anybody else when I got home would receive that or would I even tell anybody that I went? It was weird.
Yeah, sure. I can understand that.
It's not weird now, but it was weird then.
Oh, my God. Did I?
I don't even have to be there to know that.
Oh, my God. Yeah, it was just so great to see her. And
but he was real mild mannered. Like, the biggest thing he came out with is this, humility. Like, he's so humble.
Right.
It's written all over him, and it's hard for me to explain to others,
Yeah.
And like I said, being receiving of his story, like you have to forgive. Yeah. And like we teach the kids in Too Good for Drugs, and we try to explain to others that your mind and your brain is not fully developed until you're 25 years old.
Right.
So, I'm not trying to make an excuse for anybody.
No.
And that's part of, the story. Like you do know right from wrong once you hit the age of 10. But you have to forgive. I mean, you can't just hold something against somebody for the rest of their life. And who are we to make that decision? And if the court of law allowed him to get out, then obviously, their rank is a little higher than my opinion when it comes to someone's.
Right. And so he gets out.
Yeah.
And so I can understand now very clearly why today you want to ask him a couple of questions.
Right.
In regards to what you're doing at St. Bernard Parish, right?
But the weird story is that for this program, Too Good for Drugs, about 2.5 years ago, I think it was.
Yeah.
2.5 years ago, maybe it was longer than that. Maybe it was 3 years. I think you had how long have you been out?
Going into my 4th year.
I think you were just out.
Yeah.
Like
when
maybe
I spoke.
6 months, right?
Yeah. Oh, I had just got there.
Okay. So then
Sheriff Coleman called me.
Okay. So 3.5 years ago.
He's first out.
He's first out like 6 months at the time. And I knew because of course the chatter, I found out that he was out. Maybe my son even told me, but, we were having a program for Too Good for Drugs, and, we had a day for the guest speakers to come, which was Sheriff Coleman coming. And I knew he had a gentleman that was going to speak there.
Yeah, Joseph Landix.
Joseph Landix.
My mentee.
That's correct. And I had no idea, and no one else did either. Sheriff kind of just allowed this other guy to come.
No way.
But we didn't know.
You didn't know.
In the program. No, we didn't even know that there was another gentleman that was going to come with Joe.
Wow. They just thought it was Joe.
Oh, wow.
And I'm there.
Right. And I mean, it's the sheriff. So obviously he didn't call us up and say, hey, would you mind? I mean, he didn't really know if he was going to speak or not. It didn't matter. He was just newly out, and it was a part of what the sheriff wanted to do. And that was okay with us. It was very okay, And so I was there doing the thing that I do, and maybe, setting up the monitor or whatever, introducing the sheriff and, making my way over to sit down on the side and mind my business. And there was like a little foyer that we would like kind of wait in and have the guest speakers wait before we called them in to go on like
the green room.
Kind of like that, you know? And so I just kind of made my way to the side, and he was in that little waiting room there with Joe, I think.
I was with Joe and Sheriff Coleman.
I think the sheriff was already speaking at this moment. And so I went over there, and then I think it was almost time for Joe to be introduced to go out and speak. And I went over there to go like tell him, okay, you know, you got a couple of minutes. And so I went over there and I saw Kyle. And I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. I felt like that was weird because I mean, it was just weird. Like I had no idea that I would ever see him.
That's a lightning bolt here.
Yeah, it was weird. Like I knew he was going to get out, but I mean, he wasn't going to go knocking on my door.
He wasn't coming to your gig.
It was weird.
Yeah.
And so from, you know, I don't know how he got up there and spoke without any, you know, crazy feelings. Or maybe he did, but I didn't know. But there was no way I could have did what he did.
You know who else was in that audience?
There's no way I could have did that. I was like out of my mind.
Yeah.
Judge Garbity's daughter.
She's a teacher. She's a teacher.
So she calls Judge Garbity and says, look who's speaking.
Look who's the speaker today.
Can you believe?
But I got to thank him for doing his job. I mean, that was
all of the weirdness. It's not,
that's not weird. That's
but it
God,
shows it is
working.
Judge, let me tell you, Judge Garbity did his job. Sheriff Pullman used to come to Angola and check on me. Now, how many sheriffs is going to do that?
That doesn't
you know, I mean, I work for Sheriff Art out here. He cares. And so I got two, I've got a few sheriffs in my life today that care, and I'm grateful for these men. And these kids have that opportunity to have these men in their lives.
Right. That's what's so impressive to me is that they're involved with your program to the extent that they are. And that is something that, man, we need more of that in all of our school communities. Right.
And it's not just officials like that. I mean, I didn't get to really say. It's a few other people, too. Like it may be someone who owns a business, you know, that has a really, you know, unique story where they struggled throughout their life. They didn't go to prison or anything like that, but they struggled. And they teach well, they're not teaching, but their message to the students is that just because I struggled, it didn't mean I had to be a victim, or I didn't have to fall to drugs or to alcohol, or I didn't have to go abuse people because I was a victim of divorce or, you know, domestic abuse and violence, you know. And that brings me to ask you, you know, as we're wrapping up, what would you tell your 14 or 15-year-old selves? I mean, to the audience, that 14 and 15-year-old, that's who we're speaking to. If you could tell your 14, 15-year-old self anything, you know, I know they want to have fun, they want to explore, and they should, you know, but they're new in high school. And what would you tell them? Because these kids are subjected to a lot of things today. Social media, you know, outside influences. We talk about all of those things, not just drugs in the program, okay? The influences that they're up against, like you said, that we didn't have to deal with in our day, you know, and just kind of knowing that stuff and what you did and how you were 14 and 15. And, you know, you were behaving at the time. But what about if they're not behaving at 14 and 15 because they're dealing with maybe the death of their daddy at 14 instead of 18 like you were? What advice can you give them to help them cope or not make the bad choices that you made?
Learn to say no, number one. Peer pressure is blinding. And let me tell you, peer pressure is a hard thing. And, you know, even though, you know, at 14 and 15, you know, I per se was on the right track. I was playing ball, making the grade. You know, at 18, everything changed. And I did not have to do the things that I did, but it was out of selfishness. Listen, if you're going through anything at that age, and of course, you know, with the peer pressure and the internet and, you know, and everything that these young men and women are, you know, have access to, if you're caught up in that, talk to your counselor, talk to a pastor. Don't hold it in. There's no reason. I held so much stuff in, Desiree and Philip, that, you know, and it blew up like an atomic bomb instead of talking about it. And I had family. Not that everybody was listening, you know, and my parent, you know, my mama, you know, it was still, it was just me and her. She didn't want to listen because she was trying to, keep her life together. But that's why you have school counselors,
Right.
Hopefully you've got parents, but if you don't have parents that like I didn't have, a pastor, someone who is older that is walking the line. It could be a family friend. My advice is please do not hold this in and stay in the dark.
Right.
Because in the darkness is where everything happens. That's where destructive habits come, destructive modes come, and its end is destruction. Thank the Lord that I had, gratefully, you don't have to ever go down a road that I did. It was very effective for me. And I'm grateful that I got arrested. Prison became purifying, not punitive, but the Lord had grabbed a hold of me. Not everyone's born again. I had a new heart. But for those who have not received the Lord, I would have to tell them to please talk about it. You don't have to stay where you're at. There's individuals that you could speak with, even if it's in private, to speak to the Lord. Spend time in prayer. If that's where you're being drawn, praise God. If you're not being drawn that way, you have a counselor. And I'm going to keep saying, you have a counselor at Chalmette High that you can speak with. You can go to the principal. You can go to a PE coach. You can go to a teacher. I had Cheryl Molaire. I had Debbie Goday. These women loved me and stood by me. So talk about it.
And really, Kyle, the thing about it is nobody gets a guarantee that the Lord's going to move in their life.
Absolutely not.
The stories that both you and I have, so many stories.
It's a miracle.
So many stories end up the absolute opposite way.
Right.
And
That's
really,
right. That's
destruction in Angola for life is just a
my
terrible,
goodness.
terrible way to live.
That's right. And, that leads me to say this, and I don't even know if I've really shared this with you, Desiree, but you know this. Prison was a mercy, meaning God had mercy and sent me through them front gates. How many of my friends didn't go to Angola in the graveyard?
Right.
Yeah.
And if I'd have went straight to the graveyard, guess where I'd have woke up? In hell.
Right. Exactly.
So
yeah.
Yes.
You have another question for Kyle?
I don't think so.
Okay, that is fantastic. Well, look, I really, really appreciate both of you.
And love y'all.
The ministry that you have, Kyle, is so perfect. There's nobody that can talk to those guys at LPP like you can because of what you've been through. And then for Desiree, for you to just have a heart for these kids. Clearly, you have a heart to want to help these kids. And we need so many more people like you. That's what it's about, getting involved. One of the problems we have here in America is that we are way too comfortable.
Yes.
Everybody wants to sit on their couch and watch Netflix and not be bothered with showing up to do things like this, because why? You have to sacrifice your time. You have to go out your way. And you have to have uncomfortable conversations. There's all kind of things that you have to do in order to make something like this work. So God bless you, and your ministry. We're going to put this on our Here We Stand Facebook page.
Thank you.
So what we would like to do is, and once we get this out sometime next week on the Facebook page, please share this on your social medias, on your Twitter, on Facebook, and that way we can get the word about this program and more people can learn about it. So thank you guys so much for being here today. And I want to say one other thing. Our Here We Stand conference this year is actually going to be on Reformation Day, which is October the 31st, which is on a Saturday. We'll have some upcoming podcasts where we'll speak about the conference. But for right now, we're signing off here from deep in the heart of Central. Be careful going back to New Orleans.
Yes.
Kyle, you too. And thank you for watching. God bless.
God bless.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.